Hello and welcome to iMA Live. It's so great to have you with us, whether you're here with us live or whether you're watching the recording afterwards. And that's more common, especially given that whenever you do this, there are people at other parts of the world who are still in bed. I'm in Melbourne, Australia. It's just past 8 in the evening here. So for folks in the United States, it's still quite early. So if you are watching us at the replay, please don't feel left out. Please do join in and comment. If you put hashtag replay before your comment, then I'll be able to come around and look at it afterwards. I'm Stephen Baroda, rabbi, educator, and I'm a certified professional. I help you to connect better with people by communicating on their wavelength rather than yours. And as a rabbi, and therefore as an observant Jew, I just want to start this first I'm Alive with a traditional Jewish blessing, which thanks God for keeping us alive and sustaining us and bringing us to this time. Jews recite this at every festival when it comes out during the year, certain new purchases and on new occasions. So I thought it was more than appropriate to say it here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'echianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazaman hazeh. So we're going to talk tonight about how to deal with difficult employees or team members. Really not too much of a difference between the two, other than just like the status within the company. Maybe employee suggests that you have the position to hire and fire the person, whereas team member maybe more just of a manager or a person who leads the team. But really, for our purposes, it makes no difference. The issue is that you have somebody who is in your team, who you have brought in to do a certain job, or is been put in your team to do a certain job, and the two of you just don't get on. So if you've ever been in that situation, please comment and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been in that situation? Are you currently in that situation now? And how does it make you feel? By the way, if you are watching this live or in the replay, please like the video. Please share it with anyone else who you think might be interested. It would be great to get more exposure because I feel very passionate about iMA. I know it can change lives, and so the more people that we can get to hear about it, the better. Now, just before I get into the major conversation, while you're sending in the comments, there's a bit of a delay. I use StreamYard to have these videos go out live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So there's a bit of a delay. So while I'm waiting to see if there's any comments coming up, we'll just give it a little bit of an introduction, as it is the first I'm Alive, as how I got into all of this. And the truth is that my brother Ashley has actually been involved with iMA for about 8 years now. And he mentioned it a number of years ago and actually sent out his questionnaire to me and the family. And I remember actually driving a few of the kids to school one day, and they were doing Uncle Ashley's questionnaire at the back of the car and coming up with the results. And happens very quickly. The iMA questionnaire is very short, and then there's a little video afterwards from James Knight, the founder, that says, "Congratulations, you are a high red, yellow, green, or blue," whichever it is. And they were all actually high yellow, and I already knew I was as well. Turns out that my oldest son, Anton, is high green. It's probably nothing to you yet, but it'll mean a lot to you as you learn more about iMA. But they actually are opposites of each other. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Doesn't mean that you don't get on at all in a family situation, but it does mean that there are certain times when you have to work on things together, where what makes you feel comfortable and what makes them feel comfortable are entirely different, and that's what we focus on in iMA. Anyway, so he mentioned that at the time. I didn't really think too much of it. I was involved in other things. And a number of months ago, I was looking for a new way to help people, and I called up Ashley. We live on opposite side of the world. As I say, I live in Australia. He still lives in the UK, up in Manchester. We grew up in London. He moved up to Manchester about 25 years ago. I've been living all over the place, in Israel, in the US twice, in Australia twice since 1988, believe it or not. So we don't get to see each other in too much in person, but we get to talk a lot more now, particularly with video calls and so forth. And I asked him a bit more about it and how he learned. And he said, look, I learned and trained personally with the creator of iMA, James Knight. And I said, oh, do you think he would be, train me as well? And he said, no, I'm sure he'd be interested. Let me talk to him. I said, do you know how much he charges? He says, no, I don't remember, but however much it is, it's worth every penny. And it certainly was. And I trained up with James, and James is a wonderful human being in so many ways, very, very caring and very, very knowledgeable, just one of the geniuses really of our age. And he's come up with iMA. And so now I am committed to helping as many people as I can with iMA. And I've decided that I want to be able to reach people using the technology of the internet, putting up regular videos on YouTube, having them turn into a video blog on my website, and then coming on live and talking about it like I'm doing right now. Now, the first video that I put up, the best way to access that actually is via my website, and it's very easy. You see up there right now a link. I'll talk about that link in a few minutes, but just stephenbaroda.com/1, the number 1, stephenbaroda.com/1 will bring you to the blog that has a video which explains about some of the things that I'm going to be talking about over the next few minutes in a little more detail. So one of the things that I talk about on the video is I show this hat, and I say that this cap is a clue to the problem with so many suggestions of how to deal with difficult employees or team members. Of course, it works in the other direction as well. Okay, if you have someone in your team who you find he or she gets under your skin, then you can be pretty sure that person feels very similarly about you. And the problem with the suggestions that are made, and you'll find them all over the internet, and some of them are good ideas, but the problem is that they are one size fits all solution, like this cap, right? This cap, you probably heard the noise there. It fits with Velcro. So you just put the Velcro in, and then you can put it on your head and you can play around with it. So it doesn't matter if you have a small head or a large head, it will fit, which is great for the designer of the cap, because he just focuses on the design and he doesn't have to worry about producing it in all sorts of different sizes. But what's amazing for a cap is terrible when you're dealing with human beings. It's terrible for almost anything. One size fits all solutions do not work, and yet they're proposed and proposed and proposed over and over again. I want to talk about something that will throw light on this. Again, it sort of harks back to my religious background, but I don't think you have to be very religious to know the verse, actually really half a verse from Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18, in Hebrew, Ve'afta le'acha kamocha, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And the corollary statement that's come out of that, which is treat others like you would like to be treated. Now, sounds like a great statement. Why not? Okay, if you feel comfortable being treated in a certain way, it makes sense the other person is. And I think a lot of us think that. And it's known as the golden rule for a reason. But I actually got into quite an argument about this a few years ago, fighting the corner, saying, yeah, of course, that's it. The other person came up with what's now become known as the platinum rule. And at the time, I was like, I can't believe it. If I only would have known iMA, I would have realized that person was, in fact, spot on. And what is that? It's not treat others like you would want to be treated, but it's treat others how they would want to be treated. And if we think about it, it really is a better explanation of what that verse is. What is that verse basically saying? We want to feel respected. We want to feel comfortable. We want other people to treat us and talk to us in a way that we can understand, that we can relate to them, and we can feel comfortable with what it is, the messages that we're receiving from that person. So that's exactly what the other person wants. The only thing is, it may not be the exact same thing. And in fact, what I'm a teacher says that there's a 75% chance that it's not going to be exactly the same thing. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details on this live about how it works, but I would encourage you, and that's where the link that is up on the screen comes in, to go to stephenbaroda.com/free download, stephenbaroda.com/free download, and download my free PDF. And within it is a link to a video. The video is about 23 minutes long or something like that. And it really explains in some considerable detail, according to some more detail than I really should be giving away for free, about how iMA works. And it really is, iMA is simple. We say that it's a simple, universal, color-based language. Universal applies to everybody. It's simple because unlike certain other systems, it's not a psychometric. It doesn't have 20 categories and spit out reports of 8 pages, etc. But it divides the world into 4. So that, in fact, the good news is that 25% of the people on the planet, which is about 2 million people altogether, sort of think like you do, which is great. But the problem is there's 6 million that don't. And of those 6 million, 2 million of those, 1/3 of those, 1/4 of the whole population, have very little in common with you altogether, because the 2 criteria that iMA uses, and then therefore puts you into 4 quadrants. If you are on the diagonal, which is actually the high yellow and the high green are on diagonal, and the high red and the high blue on the diagonal from each other, then they tend to have quite a lot of problems in communicating with each other. So as I talk about in the video blog, again, that's stephenbaroda.com/1, is that the first thing that you've got to do is find out which of these high colors you are. By the way, as I mentioned before, I'm a high yellow. Here's my high yellow mug. Got to have the coffee, even though it's quite late in the evening. I still drink coffee, even though it's 8:15 in the evening or whatever it is here now. That's the first stage. You need to find out your high color. And then you need to find out the other person's high color. Now, if you're dealing with a situation where you are finding somebody, quote, difficult to deal with, whether they're in your employ, a team member, or whether it's your boss or your manager, as I say, it works in both directions, then chances are you have a color clash, right? And so then, as I describe in the video, it's all about trying to figure out how to resolve that. And that's where the M and the A of iMA come in. iMA stands for identify. So there's 2 stages of identify. There's identifying your own color. And by the way, if you want to do that, another link worth writing down is stephenbaroda.com/questionnaire. That takes you to the questionnaire, that same one that my brother sent to my kids all those years back. And within a few minutes, you will know your color. To find out the other person's color is a little harder. I talk about that in the free download. And we'll talk about it some more over the next few weeks. We can't do everything all at one in one session. And then the M in iMA stands for modify. So essentially what you have to do, it's almost like there's 4 different dialects going on. So you have to modify the way you speak, almost as if you're speaking another language. And that can be speak, can be write. We end up annoying people a lot with our emails by writing in a style that is totally not one that fits our audience, the person reading the email. So we have to modify the way that we come across in order to, as I say, speak on their wavelength instead of yours. And once you do that, it's amazing the magic that can happen. I heard an incredible story about someone who felt like this person was just out to get them all the time. Every time they came up with a suggestion, they had something to say about it. And eventually they both went through this process and discovered that they were opposites. One was high yellow, one was high green. And once they understood each other, they actually became the best of friends. And it can happen. And the A in iMA stands for adapt, which means that in general, you need to adapt to each person. Accept, it can also stand for the A in iMA as well, to accept who they are, and to therefore produce a situation where instead of finding the other person difficult, you just recognize that, hey, they're not difficult, they're just different for me. And once I understand that, I realize that they have strengths that I don't have. And that if we work together, then we can get a real team going. So that is how iMA solves problems. And that will do it, I think, for our first iMA Live. It's been great being here. And as we go along, I'm hoping that we'll have more people join us live, and then we can have a little bit more interaction. I put some time for Q&A, but it doesn't look like at the moment that we have any questions coming through. But hopefully that will change in the weeks to come. In the meantime, if you got value, please comment. As you're seeing it on the replay, please, as I say, act as if you were here and let me know. Have you had these situations? Are you still in these situations? What have you tried? What has worked, if anything, for you? I'd love to hear it. And please like and share. And I look forward to seeing you again on the next iMA Live next week.